warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, we are from group 6. Today we are going to presentation about examples of poetry analysis. With the members name, I'm Harani Putri, student number A1B2199079.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Anissa Sabdahaj with student number A1B219078.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Ain, student number A1B2199080.
Hi everyone, my name is Meli Konesti with student number A1B2199084.
Fundamental approaches. Now that we have reviewed the elements of basic versification and have compiled a list of critical terms, we are ready to consider the actual approaches to poetry that analysis requires. There are various pairs of sets of opposite approaches. Each of the approaches described is helpful in its own way, and ultimately a complete explication of a poem requires that we approach it in various ways. 1. Objective. The objective approach to a poem begins with a full description of the poem's physical or technical properties, and the reader should try to elucidate the poet's methods and meaning in an entirely objective way. 2. Subjective. The subjective approach to a poem begins with a personal interest in the poem. 3. General. Using the general or universal approach, we make various statements about a poem in generalized way. We direct our discussion to what general truths or feelings the poem reflects. It recurs continuously not only in poetry but also in our life. 4. Particular. The particular approach to a poem is the opposite of the general approach. Number 5. Point of view. The point of view from which an experience is described is central to our understanding of that experience. 6. Doctrine. It is possible to approach a poem philosophically. To approach a poem doctrinally, the reader must have a strong suspicion that the poet in question is likely to be associated with some set of beliefs or doctrines. Number 7. Psychological. The psychological approach leads most directly to substantial amplification the meaning of a poem. 8. Historical. The historical approach insists that a poem's meaning can only be understood within a historical setting. 9. Figurative language. One of the most basic and useful ways in which to approach a poem is to analyze its figurative language. 10. Biographical. We examine the poem in relation to what is known about the poet's life. 11. Comparative. Probably one of the most familiar tasks presented to students taking an examination in literature is to make a comparison of the following two poems. 12. Aesthetic. The author has purposely written not to simulate us intellectually so much as aesthetically. 13. Poem is a relationship to poems by the same poet. We can explain attitudes, themes, and sometimes images by way of associating them with their appearance in other poems by the same poet. Number 14. Man and nature. The point is that the reader should always be searching for discussion of that relationship. Number 15. Man and society. We speak of man's involvement in society. A man either is or is not included in the general world of people near him. He either is or is not known by the people or does not know them. 16. Thematic. We are always trying to come to certain conclusions about the most significant part of a poem, its theme. And last, evaluating. We should always make some kind of summarizing statement about the quality of the poem. Okay, next part will be explained by my friend. Thank you.
The next is case examples. In this chapter, we will analyze various poems. The readers should here refamiliarize himself with the list of critical terms and also keep in mind the various approaches of analysis outlined in the preceding chapter. The first we can see poem from Emily Dickinson with the title Is Success is Counted Sweetest. How to analyze poetry? The first we can see from versification. She has written 3 4-line stanzas, all in iambic trimeter, with a frequent extra syllable in the first and third lines. The stanzaic rhyme scheme is ABCB. In other words, only the second and fourth lines of each stanza rhyme, never the first and third, where the metrical variation usually occurs. And the next point of view. It is difficult to establish with certainty the point of view of the poem. One thing is certainty, the fact that the narrator feels sure that one who has not been victorious can best understand victory, suggests emphatically that he has been, as is were, on the losing side. Next is theme. What is poem's primary meaning? The poet's theme is summarized in the first 2 lines of poem. The second 2 stanzas describe the way in which the victorious soldiers, those who successfully take the flag, are unable to define success. In other hand, understand perfectly the nature of victory.
Okay, next about advanced analysis. First, ask more questions. To analyze poetry to the fullest extent is to ask every possible question that comes to mind. Unlimited analysis is belong to asking more questions. There is virtually no limit to the extent of analysis, for there are always more questions to be asked and possible answers found. Second, establishing basic meaning. It is important to remember that before we discuss the complex aspect of a poem, we must still begin by outlining the poem's basic meaning. To begin with, we can ask a question: what is the poem about? Third, problem the less obvious. This is the first real stage of advanced analysis. We can begin asking questions with less obvious answer. For example, why is hope a thing rather than a bird? Maybe you want to suggest the fact that we don't really know what hope looks like. We only know that it exists, we have never seen it. And then, structure and meaning. A poem has various components put together in a particular way for a theme. Next, structure and imagery. In order to amplify the presentation of idea, a poet arranges his image in a deliberated way. And then, making analysis parallel complexity. A more complex poem responds more fully to analysis. Simple ideas presented in simple ways do not require deep analysis. And then, determining the style. Style refers to the whole formed by the writer's techniques and his selection of words. To judge a style, we must familiarize ourselves with the poet's rhythm, emphasis, and organization of ideas and image. And then, stylistic devices, its expansion through simile and allusion. And then, literary depth. Exploring literary depth is basically an extension of the historical approach. We can analyze a poem by trying to discover phrases, image, conventions, themes, etc. Which, which a poem has apparently borrowed from somewhere else. And the last one is symbolism. Symbolism concerned with the representation of one word by another. Symbol and imagery symbol is particular while imagery is somewhat generalized. Symbols are concrete and recognizable. They are as emblematic and visual as image are sometimes only suggestive and even vague. Next will be presented by my friends.
I will explain the case example from the poetry analysis. I took a sample of Robert Browning's poem called Meeting at Night. We can look, there is two parts of this poem. So how to analyze the poems? The first thing we have to do is find out what the poem is about. Based on Browning's poem, you can see in the first part, a man wants to meet his girlfriend in secret with the background on a boat on a long sea of gray and black land. And the second part, after that he went to a small bay and passed through 3 fields and reached the farm and quietly entered. So after we know what was the poem about, we can determine the style and the structure of the poem or a poetry. The styles and structure of this Browning's poem lead to simplicity of his poetry and the climatic nature of his expounding everything from the beginning to the end of the night with his girlfriend. And the last, we determine the meaning of poetry. At the meaningful Meeting at Night poem, the morning farewell will be much shorter than the emotion of a fairy tale separation, and from what we learn from this poem is how it is when two hearts with a murmur of talk and with a swift heartbeat. So I think that's all about case examples of poetry and from poetry analysis. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.